Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Coming up, we're going to talk about taking a Disney cruise to Alaska on this week's episode of the Disney Cruise Line Show. The Disney Cruise Line Show is brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel. Receive an exclusive gift basket and a shipboard credit up to $1,000 when you let Dreams Unlimited plan your next Disney Cruise Line vacation. You'll get the same price as booking direct with Disney, plus you'll get the assistance of a Disney Cruise Line expert to answer all your questions and help make your next Disney cruise a magical one. Get a no-obligation quote at www.dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show, coming to you from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined at the table this week by my good friends, Dreams Unlimited Travel Agent Sean Falk.
Hi.
Dreams Unlimited Travel Agent Kathy Warling.
Hi, everybody.
Not a Dreams Unlimited Travel Agent, Denny Sunderland.
Hi there.
Joining us via Skype, Dreams Unlimited Travel Agent. Let's assume they're all agents, okay? Let's just make it so much easier for me. Jennifer Lord is joining us via Skype.
Hello.
And, of course, back in the production nook, our producer par excellence, Mr. Craig Williams.
Hi.
So welcome to the show, folks. Hope your week is going well. This is a Wednesday show when these go up, so kind of in the middle of your week. Great time to be thinking about something fun like a Disney cruise. A couple things I want to push before we get started. One is if you are looking for transfers to Port Canaveral here in Orlando from either Orlando International Airport, the Disney Resorts, Universal, really anywhere, fltours.com is our preferred partner for transportation. We've been working with FL Tours for, 20 years now. 20 years. And you're going to be hearing a lot more about them. We got some stuff coming up that's going to feature them. A wonderful company, great, small, privately owned company. And we've been doing business with them for a long time. So fltours.com for that. And also Magic Candle Company. You've heard me talk about Magic Candle Company. The reason that I sell and push Magic Candle Company so much is because of the candle I am burning in the studio right now. It's called Castaway Cruise. Somebody was telling me about Magic Candle Company. I didn't really know, whether or not they were any good, so I ordered some of their stuff right before I went on a Southern Caribbean sailing on Disney Cruise Line. Last January. And one of the things I had ordered were the little air fresheners. And I've told the story, so I'm not going to go into it again, but I used that air freshener in my stateroom and was blown away by how good it was. And that was a Castaway Cruise air freshener, which, not incidentally, we include in that exclusive gift basket that Dreams Unlimited Travel gives out. We put one of those in there so everybody can get a sample of it. So magiccandlecompany.com. Use code DisneyInfo, save 15% on your order. Okay, I'm done pushing things. We have been meaning to do this show since August of last year, and we're just getting around to it now. Yep. Sean and I had the opportunity to do a Disney cruise to Alaska. Sean had never been.
Yep.
And really, really wanted to go. This was my fourth time doing it on Disney. I'd done it 2 other times with other lines. I did it once with Royal Caribbean, once with Norwegian. Never do it with them again. Ever. Sorry. But was not a good experience. Now, I do want to be upfront that we got a travel agent rate on this sailing. Sean and I got a travel agent rate for this cruise. Normally, I would not do any kind of review, given that fact, because we didn't pay a publicly prevailing rate. However, I'm willing to make an exception here because I have done it for full price many times on Disney. So I feel like I'm covered in that. But I also think a lot of people tell us that they're fine if we get a special rate on it, as long as we're upfront about it. They just want to hear about it. So I like to make sure, though, that we're fully transparent about that. So
And I will say it's about like picking a GTY status room or like because usually you get like a 5C as far as a veranda room or whatever it is you're picking. It's a specific category. So, and you don't get to pick your room. So it's similar to that experience whenever you do.
And it's also similar price wise usually to to like VGT or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not like it's not like I can't disclose what we paid for it.
Right.
But it's not like it's $50 a person or something. I mean, it was still in the thousands of dollars, but it just wasn't what the prevailing rate was.
Mm-hmm.
So this cruise goes out of Disney goes out of Vancouver, and on previous sailings, I've stayed at some different hotels pre-cruise. Stayed at the Fairmont. Stayed at a hotel that is not on Disney's list, but should absolutely be on yours, called the Wedgwood. And for this trip, we stayed at the Pan Pacific. And Pan Pacific and the Fairmont are literally right across the street from each other. But the Pan Pacific is actually, it's not just at the port, it kind of is the port.
It's the port,
Okay.
yeah. It's about like if you're flying into Orlando and you stay at the Hyatt at the airport.
Yeah.
So like that's what
Okay.
this is. You're
Because-
staying at the cruise terminal.
Because when you go to get on the cruise, you're just going down to like the ground level of the hotel, and you get on from there. In fact, when you call Bell Services to get your bags, as long as you've got the Disney Cruise Line luggage tags on your bag, they take them, and that's the last time you see them until you get into your stateroom. So you don't even have to deal with like the porters at the port. It's just now it's an expensive hotel. The Pan Pacific and the Fairmont both, you're looking at about $600-700 a night, easy.
I booked somebody in a few days ago and it was about $450.
Okay, so
that was like May, early May. So like
yeah,
that's
so that's
the very
shoulder
first
season.
showing. Yeah,
that's the shoulder season. When you start getting into June, July,
Yeah.
August, the price on that. I mean, I was looking the other day. I saw rooms like for $1,000 a night.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that was.
It was Skype.
But hotel was wonderful. I mentioned the Wedgwood. I'd stayed there a number of years ago. It's a boutique hotel. It's not near the port. It's in Vancouver. Absolutely, absolutely incredible. It's the Wedgwood Hotel and Spa in Vancouver. It is a great alternative. I would not recommend the Fairmont. I had a very bad experience when I stayed there. Craig remembers the meltdown I had at the Fairmont and the horrible service.
Well, I mean, it was for just reasons, though, not to bring it up, but they literally left our bags just sitting out there all day while we were waiting for check-in. And not just for the check-in process. We then checked in, and our rooms weren't ready yet, and our bags continued to sit out front for hours and hours and hours. And not like in a open closet. They were sitting right
Just
out
out.
front.
And they were around the corner because they were saying, "Oh, well, the valets are watching them." Like, well, they're around the corner and not in line of sight to the valets. And there were all these like homeless people walking around. And when I complained about it, the manager said to me, "Oh, you're American. It makes sense."
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, "Oh no, you didn't." Oh no, you didn't. The Fairmont's not something I recommend, but let's not spend too much time on that. I'm going to let you go from there. This is your first cruise.
Yeah.
So
this was my first Alaska sailing.
or it's Alaska cruise.
Yeah, it's my first Alaska cruise. It was everything I hoped it would be. I pictured in my head like going to Alaska, and you think the stereotypes, even if you've done like a Caribbean sailing or a Bahamas sailing, you think, oh, I want these like luxurious beaches, and sometimes you get the pictures of like St. Lucia and stuff, and you're like, that's what I'm looking for, and then you get to Nassau and it's not that. So and you're like, but you get to like Castaway Cay and it is that, and that's what you were looking for. Everything about the Alaska sailing was like Castaway Cay for that, but this was Alaska. Like everything you picture about going, that's what it was. You could look right off the side and see bears right by the shore. You could see eagles flying. You could see, whales literally swam right by the ship. It was that kind of stereotypical thing, and this was just the norm, and everybody was like, yep, this is what happens here. So I was like, and it was so awesome. The whole 7 days was that, and that was what I wanted.
What I say to people all the time, whatever pictures you see, whatever video you watch, will not do it justice. Will not do it justice. Especially the Inside Passage. The Inside Passage is one of the ways they get up to Alaska. And they call it the Inside Passage because there's land on either side. So no matter what side of the ship you're on, you're able to see this beautiful, beautiful, untouched, unspoiled scenery. So you're not going past and here's a refinery or here's there's a shopping plaza or there's an apartment No, people haven't been here. Okay, it's nothing. And every so often you might see a little cabin down right on the water. But I didn't do it this time, but most times I will sit that day that we're going up the Inside Passage, I will sit on my balcony for hours and just watch this scenery go by. And usually what happens is your first day is kind of doing that. It's at sea. And then you go to a glacier.
Yep.
The glacier we went to was
we did Dawes Glacier. So I mean, you can either do Tracy's Arm or Dawes Glacier. So like, it doesn't matter really which one you're doing. There's like an excursion for the day. It's listed as a port technically, so it is like Dawes Glacier Day. That's all you're gonna do. So essentially, the ship gets as close as it can, which isn't particularly close, and then there's a smaller boat that comes up next catamaran to the ship. Yeah, so there's like a little catamaran, and it holds a few hundred people. So this is like the excursion to get, and it's almost impossible to get. It's really hard.
Now we were lucky. We were lucky. I'm gonna reveal my secret right now.
Oh dear.
Be the first person to check in at the port. Be the first person. And then as soon as you check in, go right to the upgrade desk. I knew there was one concierge stateroom still available. I knew there was a concierge room available on this cruise. So at 10 o'clock is when they opened. They started checking people in. We were there at 8. He thought I was out of my mind. I'm telling you, because I did this in San Juan. And I was the first person to check in. Thankfully, right next to the Platinum desk, the Platinum Castaway Club desk, was the upgrade desk. So I literally just took a step to my left, and there was one concierge room available. It was a Category V, which is basically a veranda stateroom with some upgraded amenities, but it's no different than a regular veranda stateroom. But I think it was another $2,200 to upgrade to that, worth every penny. That room was going for $18,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good gravy.
The day before the cruise, you could have picked that up for $18,000, which was no way in hell I was ever paying that.
Yeah.
So because we ended up getting to concierge, one of the best aspects, there were many, and we're going to do a show later on doing concierge on Disney Cruise Line. But those hard to get, impossible to get reservations, those impossible to get shore excursions, they can get them. So they got us on this catamaran.
And we booked this cruise probably about 2 weeks before it actually sailed. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this thing had been,
Wow.
I mean, we know through booking, like you cannot just get people on, if you're going to Castaway Cay, you're not getting a cabana 2 weeks before
Right.
you
Yeah.
get
If
there.
you're in concierge,
If you're in concierge, you are. So, or you can. So there's a really, really good shot at it. We were able to get like Palo Brunch, which is another really tough one to get. Even the dog sledding is one of the premier things to do. They were able to get us on it. It got canceled because of weather, but it is a really, really hard excursion to get unless you're platinum or gold.
So they got us on this catamaran, and like Sean said, the ship, the Wonder, can only get so close to this glacier. I mean, it's a glacier, and it's in an ice field, and Titanic. So we get on these catamarans that can navigate around. And this scenery that you're seeing as you sail through the Inside Passage, you are now so close to it you can touch it. And they take you around a few different areas, and then they bring you a quarter of a mile from the actual glacier.
Oh, wow.
And you are watching seals like sunning themselves on
because they're protected there, because it's like a little alcove essentially. So like the seals are safe from predators for the most part in that area. So there's like a big cluster of them that hang out there.
and you're watching ice shear off the glacier into the water. You're seeing all this wildlife, and you're a quarter mile away, which sounds like it's a lot, but you're like, as they're going up to it, because they say we can only go a quarter of a mile away from it. And I'm like, okay, no. They're a lot closer than a quarter, because I could get out and swim and, hit that glacier. Mm-hmm. And it is one of the most breathtaking, the most breathtaking excursion I've ever been on any cruise. I've been on over 60 cruises in my life. Nothing compared to this. Mm-hmm. Nothing compared. But if you're not staying concierge, you need to book that the day it opens up for you.
Oh, yeah.
Because otherwise you're not getting it.
Because that's the thing. Everybody on the ship, there is nothing else to do that day. It's not even like, oh, this is a popular excursion and I may get off the ship, I may not. You're not actually pulling up to a port or anything. There isn't anything else on the docket for getting off the ship that day. It's just that glacier excursion. That's the only thing. So of everybody on the ship, there's like a fraction of the people that are going to even get the chance to do it.
Now, as we're talking, I'm going to make sure that I'm providing Craig with pictures that I took of this, so that when this goes up, those will be included here.
And all that being said, it's still spectacular standing on a ship, whether you're on the top deck or in your own balcony stateroom. It's still spectacular getting up to see these glaciers, because it looks a lot smaller from further away, but you still understand the scope. You can still see, like Pete mentioned, you can see the ice shearing off and creating these huge waves, and it's one of those things that, like, it's beyond remarkable, even from the ship, if you don't have the option to get very, very close.
And one of the other things I want to mention, a Disney difference with Alaska that didn't happen on Royal Caribbean or Norwegian when I did those, they have a naturalist on board. So when you're going up and you're going, wherever you're going, there's a naturalist on the shipwide PA talking about what it is you're seeing. Mm-hmm. And giving you the history of these things. Up on deck, they're handing out hot chocolate. They're handing out blankets. And so even if you're not getting off the ship, the experience that you're getting is unique to any other sailing you are ever going to do. That is why Alaska is so popular. Mm-hmm. Okay? It is why I've been 6 times. And I would go, if I was able, I would do it every single year. It never, ever, ever gets old.
Okay, so is there one side of the ship that's any better than the other?
Starboard.
Okay.
Yeah, we were on starboard.
You always want to be on starboard on this sailing. I don't know why, but it's just, I've done it. I've done port. And I'm like, okay, because I remember, the first time I did it we were on the starboard side. I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. And it wasn't that it wasn't incredible on the port side. It was just not, I don't know.
See, well, I will adamantly disagree with you, as I always have since we've done this. I know you love being in a balcony stateroom and having that personal connection as you're moving up. I literally could not imagine myself not being on the top deck anytime I'm going through an inside passage.
See, for me, being on my balcony is like watching a movie.
Yeah.
Okay? It's like watching a movie as this, and I'm not a guy that sits around. I'm not like to sit on your balcony and chill or sit up on deck and chill. I got to be moving. But I sit there with my camera, and thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures I take when I do these. So for me, I like the privacy.
Yeah.
I like the privacy.
I like sitting on the balcony because this year I did Alaska. Last year I did the Canadian sailing with Disney, and so I did. When I would be up on top deck, it was a thing where like the wind was
a lot colder
than you would think that it was, but it was a nice, relaxing experience.
That was the other thing I was going to say is that when you're on your balcony, you're protected from the wind on either side. Whereas when you're up on deck, you're getting that you're cold.
Oh yeah, it's cool. The benefit of it is that you do have that option to move back and forth, and people do. And on the Disney cruise that we did, I don't remember when we went through to go up to the glacier. I don't remember if we had a lot of wildlife that day, but when I just did my last Alaskan cruise on Princess, it was a day where they were literally calling out animals on each side of the ship. So like if you would have been in one stateroom on one side, like you'll see everything on your side, but you might miss out on everything on the other.
True.
So
yeah, but the big thing to me is budgeting with this, because this is definitely one of the more, even Disney's already not the lowest price cruise line for sure, and this is already one of the more expensive routes of the more expensive cruise line. So it's a thing of budgeting it out properly of what is going to get you the most value. If I had to wait an extra year to save up more money to do an ocean view or a veranda, I would do it. I wouldn't want to do an inside cabin for this sailing. I wouldn't. I don't mind so much if it's the Bahamas or Caribbean, because I've done it a lot of times and I just don't need to necessarily as much. But this one, I'm like, I have to see these views like from my room. I want that option. And that's a big point for me. And also, on other cruises, I don't typically do a lot of excursions. I just explore, or being on the ship is a big part of it for me. This one, I would budget out doing an excursion in pretty much every port.
Yes.
And that, I mean, excursions get expensive, and that's something to take into account too. I need to save money to do excursions.
All right, let's talk about the ports. What was our first port of call?
It was
Skagway or Ketchikan.
Skagway. Yeah.
Skagway.
I was trying to say Saguenay, and that was my Canadian one for that sailing. Yeah, Skagway was our first. We did a glass blowing.
We did Jewel Gardens.
Excursion. Yeah, Jewel
and
Gardens.
I've done this before, and it sounds like Skagway's a cute town. First of all, it's a small town, so like literally get off the ship and you're there on the main drag, and this is the entire town. Okay. And some cute stores, your jewelry stores, but there's also some real cute Alaskan gifts and stuff. I love walking around and having lunch in town like that.
It's the most, to me, it's the most Alaskan of it, because there's these huge mountains. It is like it's right next to the Yukon, and so it is like, it's this gold rush town more than any of the other ones.
But there's still a Caraloha, so in case you were wondering, you can still get bamboo sheets. So,
Exactly.
there's also a Del Sol still, so you can still get your shirts that light up. So.
It's a cruise port.
It's actually a cruise.
Yeah.
But this was the second time. Actually, the first time I had done Jewel Gardens was with the. It was with Adventures by Disney when we did the cruise, the Alaska cruise with the ABD add-on, which is an option. We can talk about that in another show. But if you want to make your Alaska cruise like absurdly expensive, add ABD. Worth it, absolutely worth it, but it's expensive anyway. So Jewel Gardens is this. Well, it's a garden, but it also is. They do. They make all their own glass. So they do all this artistic glass work. And you can do, there's a demonstration where they show you how they do it. And then they let you come, each person in the group, if you do the excursion, each person can come up and actually create their own hand-blown glass ornament.
Okay.
And they show you what the different options are. And Sean, I get some great pictures of Sean doing it.
Yep.
And, normally that's not the sort of thing I would be into.
I picked this one.
But it was really cool. It was really, really cool. And then, of course, they have the excursion included a lunch. It's
It was a vegetarian lunch, and at first I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, 'cause I'm not vegetarian at all, but it was good. That was a really good meal, so I enjoyed mine a lot.
It was good. It was good. Yeah.
Yeah. The big excursion that people like doing here is actually the train ride into the Yukon.
Yukon Pass.
That's the one that like is the coveted one, and our concierge was actually not able to get us that one. So it's not a guarantee that you can get stuff. It was fully booked, had been booked for months, and nobody dropped out. Nobody didn't want to do it. I have friends that have done it that I've talked to, and they were like, "Oh, it was incredible, and it was so neat to to do it."
Did we do that?
No,
We didn't, but I had done that on the ABD as well. That was part of the ABD.
Yeah, and so we actually, the excursion you booked for us when we were in Skagway, you ultimately didn't end up going on it, but we did basically it was a Jeep convoy where we started off in town and we drove all the way up into the Yukon territory, and there's a small town that everyone stops at. It's where the train basically stops as well too once you get up there, and then you board buses if you don't have a round trip on the train and you come back. This was my favorite excursion that we did when we did it, so much that when I just went to Alaska with my parents, we did basically the same thing, except this time we just private rented Jeeps and we drove up ourselves the same route and then came back. Yes, you take the risk that because you're doing it on your own, that if anything goes wrong, the ship could pull away without you. But you know, like that was our first question that we had with the agency, and they're like, "Oh, trust me, if you get a flat tire or something, we're up there immediately," because it's only about a 2-hour drive there and back. So, and you're in port pretty long, so it is an option if like you really want to take the train ride and you can't get far out there. You can always look into that, but you know, it's.
There is also that element of this is one of the few cruises you're going to do where everything is connected still. I mean, obviously, no one wants to miss the thing, like miss their port time. They're supposed to be back on the ship. But it is a situation where, like, you can drive to Juneau if you absolutely had to and get back on the ship. It's not like with the Caribbean islands where you are just fully screwed and you can't do anything. Obviously, don't miss your port time.
Don't miss it. But but I love the town. Skagway's my favorite stop in all of the stops on Alaskan cruise. It's just, to me, it is what Alaska is. So,
and next on the stuff was Juneau.
We went to Juneau. Obviously, that's the capital of Alaska. It is very small for a capital or whatever. It's not Nashville, so I can for sure. So it's not a lot of other capital cities. It still was really small. It was but you really got dropped off like in the heart of their downtown district, and there's not like skyscrapers or any of these types of things like you expect from a capital city. It still has that Alaska small town feel. And the big excursion here is the glacier dog sledding. It's really expensive. Even the non-Disney exclusive is about $650 to $700 a person.
Wow.
The Disney exclusive is $1,000 a person. So, and that includes a helicopter ride over to a glacier, and then you go dog sledding on the glacier. It gets canceled about 50% of the time just because of weather issues for the helicopter.
If there's any visibility issues whatsoever, those helicopters do not take off.
Right.
So what the alternative was kind of like a dog sledding camp. That was, so it's not quite the same thing. You're not. Again, on the ABD, we did the helicopter to the glacier, do the dog sledding. Oh my God. So this was a little different. Now, Sean has 2 Alaskan Huskies, so he's a Husky dad. So this was really special for him because concierge was able to get us on the excursion. It ultimately got canceled, so we were able to switch it up. They were great about that. Like that morning, they were like, "What do you want to be on?" Because like it's done. So we pretty much had the choice of going to the actual dog sledding camp and seeing the dogs. We got to go through like their training course, and you could meet the dogs and everything like that. So that was cool. Your other option was a whale watching excursion, which from what I understand is amazing. It was really, really popular to do the whale watching excursion. You can actually see whales from off the side of the ship many times. I saw them, but it's not the same as the excursion. The whale watching excursions, I mean, you go out. I mean, it's never guaranteed. It's wildlife. But when we did it, We did it when we did the Royal Caribbean, no, the Norwegian one with my mom. Because Mom's done it with Norwegian, she's done it with Royal Caribbean. And they took us out, and maybe 200 yards from the ship, this whale breaches.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was like out of a movie.
Wow.
So you can see some amazing stuff
Yeah.
with those whale watching ones.
Yeah, and it was awesome. Even beyond that, like if it's a thing where you can't get excursions that you want, there's a lot to do in the ports here. It is a thing where if I pop into Nassau or Jamaica or whatever, I get off the port a couple minutes, I do a quick one around to just say I got off at the port, and then I usually am back on the ship pretty quickly. These, I could stay off the ship a good while. I wanted to eat. Even then, I think I don't want to eat off the ship. I want to eat where I already paid, but we ate in several restaurants off the ship just because I was like, I want some local seafood. I want some local cuisine while I'm here.
Yeah, Juneau's a little light. I mean, after you already go to one port, Juneau's got pretty much all the same shopping, a little bit different. One of the other popular things there that on a cloudy, ugly day, it doesn't make much sense to do it, but there is a cable car that can take you up the mountain, and a lot of people love going up there and getting the views. I did the whale watching in Juneau and didn't see orcas. Apparently, they had just kind of moved out of the territory.
You scared them.
Right before. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was me, but we had a whale breach literally right under our boat to the fact that when you look down in the water, you could still see it swimming right below us.
Wow.
It was insane.
Yeah.
But Juneau, it's the weather's usually terrible there,
But I will say August is really the best. If you want to do the whale watching thing, August is your best bet. They call them the whales of August for a reason. But August is a really, really good time to do that.
And then the final.
Do you feel like that's the best time in August to go? Because I know, like I went to Iceland recently, and you go and you can't experience certain things at different times of the year. So if you were to pick your one time to do this cruise, would it be August, or are there other things that you miss?
No, I like August, and I'll tell you why. There's a number of reasons. Number one, it's when the town I live in is basically a sauna. So any excuse to get the hell out of it, I'll take. Also, August, you're getting later in the season, right? You're getting later in. Alaska season really starts about mid-May and ends in early September. And if you're going to find last-minute deals, you're going to start finding them in mid to late August, which is when we went. We were in mid-August. So that's something to keep in mind. But also, the stores, if you're doing jewelry shopping especially, these stores don't exist once cruise season ends, right? The town of Skagway, for example, it exists only to support cruise lines. There's a very few people that live there outside of cruising season. So as you get further and further into the season, these places have to move their inventory. So they tend to be a lot more liberal in negotiating on prices. So, I don't like shoulder season. Too cold in May. Too cold. By August, the weather, you're talking about in the evenings, maybe in the mid-50s. So, I mean, it's Alaska, so it can get cold. We had some days where it was, like in the 30s. But in May, it's cold. I've done it in May, too. But August is my favorite time to do it.
Yeah, and a lot of people you talk to, you're like, oh, what's it like living up here? And they're like, I don't know, I live in South Carolina.
Yeah.
I'm just here for
okay.
the cruise season. I own this jewelry shop, and I have a building here. I rent the space during the summer, and then I'm back in Myrtle Beach during the wintertime. So you run into that quite a bit, where there's not a ton of locals. There are some, but that's what they're here for, is for your enjoyment during this summertime. So...
Probably the most extraordinary experience we had on an excursion
was in Ketchikan.
And
that was, I think that was my favorite port as well. I love
Ketchikan.
I loved the view of the port. It looked very like if you kind of transplanted Port Orleans Riverside up to
Yeah,
Alaska.
that's a good,
Okay.
Like
that's a good way to describe it.
Kind
yeah.
of that look, but like up in Alaska. It was super cool. And my big thing about going to Alaska, I was like, I want to see a bear in person. I've never seen a bear, and I was like, I need to see one. And they had a black bear experience, so I was like, that's the 100%. That was the one that I was like, I have to do this excursion.
And they tell you with this excursion, we do not guarantee you're going to see a bear. Because they're bears. And, it's
Okay.
not like they're, released on
Oh,
schedule.
there, yeah.
So we went and we did this excursion. And you are on a raised boardwalk. That's a good 50 feet, 60 feet above
The bears.
the bears.
Ground
Okay.
the bears, yeah.
And immediately, as soon as we get onto this boardwalk, we see a bear. Like, oh, wow, great. So I'm taking pictures. Now, I don't think I've ever taken as many pictures in my life in one location as I did here. Then we see another bear. Wow, 2 bears. Except, second bear was a mama bear. And there was her cub right behind her.
Oh.
Like, oh my God. So like everybody's like flipping out, right? And they're right underneath where our group is. And this cub is curious. He sees all these people and he wants to get a better look. So up the tree he goes.
Oh, geez.
And we're including a picture here that I took. This is how close we were to this cub.
This.
He was right there.
Oh yeah, he climbed that like 50 feet up a tree and was literally at eye level, just staring. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the guide was saying, do not reach over the railing to try and touch this cub because the mother was down there watching like a hawk. And had anybody gone near that cub, that mother was coming up that tree after. And then we have a problem.
Yeah, she taught. We got to watch her teach them how to fish because there was like a little stream. She literally caught a
neat.
fish right out. There was another. There was another family of bears as well that came up. So she had 2 cubs.
Incredible.
She was teaching them. She caught a fish. They were attempting to catch one. The kids never really could get one, so she eventually just gave up and was like, "Fine, I'll just get it myself, I guess." And so she got it. Literally, like prepared it up for them, and they were carrying it around. And one of the cubs tried to climb up the tree with it and dropped it and was like screaming because he dropped his fish, and like she yelled and he had to come down and get it, and it was like a whole
thing.
It's a whole sitcom going on for these bears. So I don't know, but it was like I could sit here just forever and watch what's happening with this family of bears. Like I don't know what
So
they're
cool.
doing.
And it was like, we must have seen
Probably about 8
or 9 bears
Yeah.
and cubs. And we were like, oh my God.
Yeah, I have
it was
a lot of-
so unbelievable.
I don't really take a lot of photos of things, but like my phone, I skimmed through the other day looking at the glacier picture to show somebody, and I have like 30 pictures of bears in my phone. I was like, I never take pictures of stuff. I can't believe how many bear pictures I have.
Now, is
in
that
here.
something too that it depends on the season?
It does.
I don't know if I don't know so much if it depends on season. Like the whales, it might, but it just is luck of the draw.
Okay.
We asked.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say I did talk with the guide about it, and so of course they do that every day. She did say that 8 or 9 bears was unusually high for like how many that you're gonna see, but she did say they typically get one. She said it's very rare that they don't get any at all. She said, but it is a possibility. We went right after it had rained. The weather had been pretty bad in Juneau, and so it was like it had rained. The sun was coming out now, so like they had been in their den, and then they were now like re-emerging. So it seems to be weather related. So going in a little like that end of August time, she was saying was a good time because the rainy season versus like the bears coming out compared to the summer. But she did mention that like the July month was pretty solid. Like you're going to see at least 1 or 2 just because that's like the main part of summer. They're going to come out and catch fish. They're going to come out and do their thing. So that's what the guide said. So it's the only time I've done it. So I don't know.
And then once you're done with that piece of it, they have some demonstrations at the end of it, where some Native American, how they make the totems and things like that. But they also had a live bald eagle.
Oh, wow.
And that I guess had been wounded, and they were caring for it.
Yeah, her
and
wing, she can't fly.
she
That's
can't-
what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I mean, again, you're here, and 10 feet in front of you, there is a bald eagle, which is like something you normally don't see that close up. And again, you want picture opportunities. This is golden. So here's another one that we're showing now of the eagle. It was absolutely breathtaking. One thing I will tell folks is that cellular reception on this excursion was non-existent. So when we finally got to the, because God forbid I'm without a connection for more than 10 seconds. Once we got to the cabin area at the end, they had Wi-Fi.
And how long was this excursion from beginning
A
to
couple
end?
hours,
Couple
maybe 2
hours.
hours.
So
I'd
worth
say.
every penny.
Oh yeah,
well,
yeah. And
this
it wasn't.
was
I don't remember being that. I don't remember exactly what it cost.
I think it was in the high 100s, maybe the low 200s per person, which is like
I don't-
on par with regular excursions.
Really, I didn't think it was that expensive.
Yeah, I think it was about 180 to 200 range.
Whatever it was absolutely worth it, but also not so long that you didn't have real time to spend in the town.
Yeah.
Good.
You are in port a long time at these ports comparatively.
Yep.
I mean, you can be there as early as anywhere from 7 to 9 o'clock in the morning, and you may not leave until close to 6 or 7 o'clock. So sometimes I know one of the ports we did, it was like 13 hours was how long our port
Yeah.
time was.
It also stays light very late. So it's not unusual for you to have dinner, a second seating dinner at 8:30, and go out on deck, and it looks like sunset.
Yeah. And there were a couple of families that I talked to that actually had enough time that they did 2 excursions in one day. They did one in the morning, and as soon as they got back, they had to literally get right back on their next excursion. But they were like, "That's what we wanted to do,"
Yeah.
and they had enough time to do it.
Yeah,
so.
and Ketchikan, you could probably do it there because like a lot of people get right off the ship, and one of the big draws there's a lumberjack show. That people
Done
eat
that
up.
too.
I haven't done that one, but
It's
people
cute.
love it. But then also you mentioned like with Native Americans, there's a big totem park in Ketchikan as well
Yep.
too. So that's kind of like a back-to-back thing that people want to hit when they're in Ketchikan. So it's it is possible.
And I'm sorry.
This is not an inexpensive cruise by any means.
No.
This is a bucket list thing that people are like, I want to do this. I have to do this. I've always, even if you're not a nature person and outdoorsy and all that kind of stuff, it's still a cruise and it's still a great way to see it. And it's something where it'd be very hard to just show up and drive around Alaska. That's not really an option here for the most part compared to going over to Europe or something where you can take public transit or trains and flights and stuff to get around everywhere. So this is the best way to see Alaska and one of the only ways to see these places.
And I can honestly say that having done Royal, having done Norwegian, having done Disney, can't speak for any of the lines. I know Princess and Celebrity all do sailings up there as well. Haven't done those. But obviously there's a big price difference between Royal, Norwegian, and Disney. Disney's worth every stinking penny. And like I said, I say that because I've actually paid, with the exception of this cruise, I paid full price for all my other Disney cruises to Alaska. And never once did I say, I wish, it was nice, but it wasn't really worth it. The level of service on the ship, and I'll tell you, I don't know what's happened with the Wonder, but the food on the Wonder is absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, wow.
That was my second sailing on the Wonder last year. We'd done San Juan in the Southern Caribbean in January, and then Sean and I did Alaska in August. And with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, the food in the main dining rooms, I'm not even talking about in Palo, which was always very, very good. Palo brunch, forget it. But I was like, this is restaurant quality food.
it was great.
Is absolute restaurant quality food. Service and concierge, forget it. First of all, that's the best concierge lounge on the Wonder. It's right above the Cove Cafe, and it's got this whole area.
Yeah.
And and the concierge team, Glenn and Jose and what was her name?
I don't remember.
I can see her face. I'm so
Yeah, I can see her
sorry.
face. I don't remember.
They were magnificent. Magnificent. They just take care of everything for it. There's a reason it's more expensive. There's a reason it's more expensive. And look, Dream sells Royal Caribbean. It sells Norwegian. So it's not like I'm pushing Disney because Dream sells that and we don't sell the other ones. I'm telling you exactly how I feel. And you know me well enough, hopefully, that just because I sell something doesn't mean I'm going to talk nice about it.
Yeah.
I sell Disney World and I'm on them constantly. But
Yeah, there was not one thing about this cruise that I would change at all. Like it was the itinerary was perfect, even the ship was perfect. That was my first time on the Wonder, and it was just even like the Tiana's Place restaurant wasn't my favorite as far as the food went.
See, I loved it.
I didn't care that much about the food, but the live entertainment in there was so good. It was the best like restaurant music experience I've ever seen. They did this entire jazz thing.
Well, they got the whole
so cool.
Yeah, they got this like Dixieland band type jazz quartet.
And they sang Disney songs and covers of like famous jazz songs and everything like that. And it was just phenomenal. Like the entertainment and everything was fantastic too. So I was like, oh my God, this is my first, because I'd done the Magic the year before, and there's sister ships essentially, but I enjoyed the entertainment a lot more on the Wonder than I did on the Magic.
Yeah, Tiana's Place they need to put that in French Quarter. Port Orleans French Quarter. That restaurant is so perfect. First of all, the young lady doing Tiana was one of the most beautiful human beings I've ever seen.
Yeah, she was great.
In real life, and perfectly embodied the character. The lead singer of that quartet group, this guy I would buy this guy's album. That's how good he was.
Oh yeah, he was great.
He was absolutely unbelievable how good, how talented he was. So yeah, Tiana's has become my favorite restaurant outside of like Palo Remy type things, but of the rotational restaurants, absolutely it's Tiana's Place. And I don't know what they did. We used to have such problems on the Magic and the Wonder with the food. And then the Dream and the Fantasy came along and they really upped their game. And, getting ready to do the Dream. At the point that this goes up, we're going to be on the Dream the following week. So I'm interested to see how it compares. But I will tell you, at least from my experiences on the Wonder, food has been amazing. So you guys have any questions?
Yeah, okay, so I do. So I've been on 10 Caribbean cruises. I know what that is.
Time to shake it up, lady.
Okay. So I pack a swimsuit and a cover up and everything that I need for the Caribbean. So it's cold on the Alaska cruise. How you said it's in the 50s if you go in August in the
When you do the
evening?
glacier, it's cold. So like we did that excursion.
It was literally like getting off the ship and getting over to the glacier was like a 10 or 15 degree drop just getting close to that. That was by far the coldest it was. The rest of the time it was like seasonably nice, and that's with living in Florida. I'm not used to cold at all, but it typically stayed in the mid 50s throughout the. I could walk around the ship with like a light jacket, and I was okay.
Yeah. The way I pack for Alaska, not a lot of short opportunities. So I've got jeans, I've got slacks. I tend not to wear bulky shirts, but I do make sure I have pullover sweaters.
Okay. Layers.
Yeah.
Layers.
Okay.
I don't do big jackets. I did bring one, which I was kind of glad I did, one like cashmere trench that I have that I wore that. But a lot of times it was like windbreakers and stuff like that and scarves.
Okay.
You want to have options. You want to be able to dress in layers, take something off if it gets too warm, put something on if it gets too cold.
You just don't know, because like when we were looking at the forecast before we left going out, it was showing like kind of the 50s in that range, and then they ended up going through a heat wave, and it was getting up. I want to say at least the feels like we're in the 70s. And so it's like, okay, well, if I would have packed only sweatshirts and long pants and everything like that, I would have been roasting. So
Yeah.
And keep in mind the pools are heated on the ship. And yes, on Glacier Day, where it's like 25 degrees on deck, you've got these crazy people in that pool.
Yeah. Yeah, the only day I had to wear like gloves and like a beanie or anything like that was on when we went to the glacier. Besides that, I really just could wear a light jacket or a long sleeve shirt and I was okay. So
Okay.
yeah.
Because that's just so antithetical to what I mean. Because
You think
we're
of a
so
cruise,
conditioned.
yeah.
Cruise equals warm weather.
Yeah.
So much of a cruise is spent out on the top decks. If you have a family, if you have little ones, things like that, they're in and out of the pool constantly, and you're doing a million other things. So there are a million things to do. They're just different.
They're more indoorsy. There's
Okay.
not like the deck
Okay.
activities as much,
Okay.
just because, I mean, you'll see all the lifeguards, they're like really bundled up the whole time because they just have to stand there by the pool. And a lot of times the pool is empty and they're just literally looking at empty water. So, so obviously they're cold. And it is a thing of where like the wind can like get
Okay.
cold chill, I guess. Yeah, there's wind chill.
Okay.
Did you ever find a time, because I know you like to take pictures and so do I, but did you ever take the time to put the camera down and just experience it? We you tell
can.
people to do that?
For me, the experience is through the lens, right?
Okay.
That's part of that experience for me. And you're just everywhere you go on that cruise. There's so much beauty. There's so much natural beauty. There's so much wildlife. And look, you guys know me. I'm not tree-hugging hippie nature boy. So for this to get to me, it's got to be special. And you find yourself afraid you're going to miss something.
Yeah, I'd never put my camera down.
And not just that, but making sure I have multiple lenses with me, because I don't, sometimes you want that beautiful wide shot, and other times, you've got a baby cub climbing up a tree,
Yeah.
and you want that close up. Not that I needed a zoom lens for that, because like I said, that thing was, we could have touched it. I mean, that's how close we were. We could have reached out and touched that bear. We would have been dead,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
You wouldn't have a
Yeah.
hand. But
so, but that's what I found myself doing a lot, was switching lenses. Because there were places where, you really wanted the wide angle, but then there were places where you wanted that zoom shot. And, and in Alaska, 28 isn't wide enough when you need to do a wide shot, because it is just epic. It's epic.
I'd be afraid I'd miss something if I didn't have my camera.
And that's enjoyable for me and relaxing for me. So, for me. But I'll tell you what, the iPhone 11, it's a pretty damn good job. Because sometimes I wasn't fast enough with the DSLR. Okay, out this came.
I mean, I know there was one particular morning where Pete was at the spa and I had gotten up, and so it was like 8 o'clock in the morning maybe, and I just sat on the balcony and just looked at, like, as we're cruising along, and just got to see everything, and got this it was almost like silent in a way, like that's like, not to get weird, but like cathartic, and
Yeah.
there's this like very nature peace kind of thing about it, whereas a lot of other places it can be chaotic. And I think sometimes you forget there's places like this out there that even exist at this point, just
Yeah.
because I'm so not used to seeing it, and going and seeing this, I'm like, oh my God, when I eventually have my mental breakdown, I'm gonna just come here and just live among the trees or whatever. And so
And the
when I
bears.
finally snap, like, this is where I'm coming. So because I can just be at peace until I just like whisked away. So that's my
Okay.
that's my dream.
goodness.
So.
That's a life plan.
Yeah, and I think, to your question, Kathy, it's their sunsets are kind of like a great example of this. They like Florida. It seems like they always have these incredible sunsets that also take forever to go down, because it is later on in the day when it happens. But you'll see it and you'll be like, oh my God, it cannot get any more beautiful than it is in this moment. So you'll take your photos and then you'll stop, and then 15 minutes later, it'll be even more epic.
Yeah.
And this goes on for like 45 minutes, and that's kind of like all of Alaska. It's, you get excited in the moment and you want to snap away, and you absolutely should, but there is plenty of time in between to enjoy it. And then you're going to see something next that you're like, that's even better than the last. And it happens every single day of the cruise.
And honestly, we could go on for another hour talking about the elements of this cruise, but we are time limited. Anything else? Anything else anybody wants to ask?
Pete, is there an age range that you would recommend for this cruise? I know a lot of people say, wait till your kids are a little bit older. I mean, my kids are 6 and 11, so I've been kind of waiting for my 6-year-old to get a little bit older. One, a lot of the excursions are older ranges. You got to be 10 or 14 to do a lot of the Alaskan excursion. Is there a range? Did you notice on the ship, like where you would say, under this age, I wouldn't?
I think 6 is probably the outside of what I would suggest. I think older is better. Again, you know, it's, as you mentioned, a lot of excursions are age limited because of where they're going and what they're doing. They have to be careful. But at the same time, there were a lot of kids. Mm-hmm. Younger kids on the cruise.
There were definitely less than, there either were less than I've noticed on previous cruises, or because of it being cold, they weren't like at the pools and stuff and maybe hung out more in the kids' areas.
Yeah, I think it kind of comes down to what do your kids like. If your kids are the type that will go run off with their friends and run around the neighborhood in the forest and kind of do that, then I think they will appreciate the nature and what you have to see and experience in Alaska. But if your kids are more addicted to TV technology, I wouldn't probably not recommend it, because I think they will then be like, okay, well, I'll just go to the kids club. Like, well, you're in Alaska though.
One other thing I do want to mention, in prepping for this, I happened to come across a blog, an 8-part blog I had written back in 2011 when I did my first one of these with Walter, my ex. And I'll figure out a way to post links to it. But I wrote about how I was not looking forward. That Walter was nature boy. Walter really wanted to do that sailing. And that's why we did it. I had no interest. I'd forgotten that because nature doesn't appeal to me. I'm not somebody that's going to spend time in nature. This turned me around. That I now you can't keep me off of an Alaskan cruise. If I have an opportunity, I'm going. I'm not even going to think about it. So it's not. I say that only because I know there are people out there that are like me. We're not nature people, right? You'll get... Now, granted, I'm roughing it on this luxury cruise, right? So it's not like I'm one with the land. But the level of appreciation I got for Alaska, for the natural beauty, for the nature of it all, something I didn't have before. It's life-changing. It absolutely is and I'm not overselling it. You ask anybody who's done an Alaska cruise, will tell you the same thing. It is life-changing. You have an opportunity. I highly, highly recommend it. But that is going to have to do it for this episode of our show. We went longer than we were planning to go. But we'll be back with you again next week with another edition of the Disney Cruise Line Show. Have a great week, folks.